has to do about navigation. Understanding how to do it is very important. Yeah, a whole lot of knowledge might be very important. You have to be academically excellent. You have to do this. You have to do this. But if you are doing all of those things, if you want to come to UJ and be successful in that respect without understanding basic information that will be profitable to you or guide you, it is very possible that you might be going the professor way. It is on this note that I want to take this time to appreciate the um, um, leadership of Consuj in University of Johannesburg now, from the president to every single member of the executive, the stakeholders that are just very forward in their thinking. They are just proactive in their thinking about how things will be better for every single person that is in one way or the other connected to the Consuj. Thank you so much. My name is Olusegun Ajayi, and I will be the anchor for today. It's a privilege that I don't want to be taken for granted. Thank you so much. Please, if you will permit me, I understand we have a whole lot of international students here, people from other parts of the world. And so we are very considerate of that. But at the same time, we just want to respect the nation that has, given us the grace to be who we are as, in terms of nationality. And by saying that, I mean, I want to crave your indulgence. I want to ask for your permission that we will have to start this program with our national anthem, and that is Nigeria national anthem. Please, if you know it and you have, from other parts of the world, join us. If you don't, please just give us this grace to welcome you with that. And it's on that note that I would calling on the president to lead us, because he's our leader, and he will be representing our president here. I mean, yeah, the nation's president. So, Mr. President, please, if you don't mind, can you please lead us as we take the national anthem? Thank you so much.
Compatriots, Nigeria's colors to serve our father's land with love and strength and faith. The labor of our youth shall never be vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Tojan. So that's always very, very, very helpful. Like, especially this time that there has been bombing all around, like Ukraine, Russia. So this is the time you need to know that I belong to this nation. But the world is one, and we pray for peace across the world. So, like, without wasting much of our time, it is time for me to bring on the president of this association in person of Mr. David Love for his welcome address. We have just 3 minutes to do that. Mr. David Love, it's your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. My name is David Love, and I'm a doctoral student in the Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment, University of Johannesburg, of course. On behalf of our grand patron, our Professor Lubambi Peter, and other members of the Executive Council, I want to welcome you all to this symposium. I welcome our distinguished Dr. Abiodun Egbetokun, the Assistant Director of Research, National Center for Technology Management, Abuja, Nigeria, Ms. Intombise, the Director of Fundraising and Administration, UJ International Office, and also the representatives of the UJ Protection Services for today's symposium. Thank you very much, Sir Zamas, for giving us this valuable time to inform us for the sake of our progress. This symposium is the second symposium in the life of this administration. When we came on board, we did one last year, which centers around opportunities within UJ and also outside UJ And also we look into issues of permanent residency, passport issues, fundraising also. And this symposium is the second one for this administration. So therefore, distinguished scholars, this symposium is not just a milestone for our leadership, but a well thought out event for our benefit. This is the symposium that was passed at the last year at General Assembly meeting when I presented our 2022 plans and budget for Consuj. We have had cases of insecurities, mugging, theft, to house burgling, and that is why we want to discuss security issues today for our safety. And also want to provide a roadmap for prevention of being victims of insecurity, as we all know that these insecurity issues are things that are beyond our own powers as students. And that is why we have the UJ Protection Services here also. Also, most of us are researchers. Most of us are postgraduate students. And we can all agree that research methodology is a fulcrum of research. Just like we were taught in our high school, the fulcrum determines the significance of the effort and also the quality of the load that we are going to have. Hence, an expertise on research for today's event has been brought to us, which he has published more than 100 articles with more than 1,200 Scopus citations, which he has published with different researchers also across the globe. And I've spent several years as a researcher, even in South Africa here. Also, funding is a major issue for we international students. And this is the best time to talk about it. I understand that most of us, we are just able to pay the 30% requirement for registration. So we want to seek other opportunities that we have in UJ that we have in UJ for our benefit. Distinguished participants, please let us maximize this symposium for our benefit, irrespective of where we are joining from. Let us look at it as for our current and future benefits. It's a timely event which your concentration will aid your benefit. So I want to plead with us to please, as we are here, it's just 2 hours. Within 2 hours, a lot will be said, from fundraising to security to research issues. So if you have questions, and this is an opportunity for us to listen and also ask questions, as this program is meant for us, is student-oriented. So once again, on behalf of our grand patron, Professor Peter Olubambi, and the Executive Council, I welcome you all to this symposium and humbly seek your concentration for the next 2 hours, jotting down needed information. Thanks for your presence, and thanks for believing in us. Thank you very much, everyone.
Wow, thank you so much, President David Love. So that has been very, very great. And I want to also thank you for your doggedness and tenacity about seeking for the best thing that Nigerian students would experience, especially here in the University of Johannesburg. Thank you so much. So we take this time to welcome Ms. Ntobinse, Dr. Abiodun Egbetokun, and the UG Protection Service. Those will be the anchors of the discussions for today. And at this time, I have the privilege to call on Ms. Ntobinse, who will be discussing, securing funding and bursaries as international students. Securing funding and bursaries as an international student. How do we go about this? The president has, hammered on that and how important funding is to what we are here to do. Today, we want to learn how to go about it, differently, just to make sure that, the tires of funding is meeting the road of our academic pursuit here. Thank you, Ms. Ntobinse. You have the floor. Thank you.
Is it afternoon? Yes. Good afternoon, colleagues. And Thank you for inviting the International Office to this symposium. My name is Ndombise Manqase, and I am the Director for Fundraising and Administration at International Office. Just don't go too quick. David? Okay, so I was pleased when the Nigerian students through the association invited me to come and give a talk around opportunities available in terms of funding. My portfolio is fairly new in terms of this type of mandate. The mandate for this portfolio is simple, is to raise funding that will support international students in order to get them to study at UJ, to amends in terms of the culture and their student life. And also to identify opportunities for those who are coming at postgraduate level, research and mobility opportunities. With that said, maybe we can go to the next slide. As you are aware that we are an international of choice anchored in Africa, dynamically shaping the future, and you are part of that vision. We are being led by our VC, Prof. Marwala, who is taking lead, or and UJ taking lead in terms of the 4IR. And we do this through our smart international and more importantly, Pan-African partnerships. We also imbued all our activities, programs around internationalization. And also this we can only do through having a diverse international student body, of which international students make a big part of that. If you were not aware, of the 50,000 students that are enrolled yearly, of that we have close to 4,000 students who are international, and they come from all parts of the world, but mainly in Africa. And in Africa in particular, we have a lot of concentration in the SADC region, which is our neighboring country. We also have a big concentration from Nigeria, West Africa, Kenya, Ghana, and Gabon. So obviously we definitely are making a big footprint around the continent in terms of getting students coming and study or choosing UJ as their first choice to come and study. So with that, then international office, if you go to the next one, will be what we call home away from home. And for the most part, if not, you have at some point interacted with my colleagues. The international office is here to serve international students. We are being led by Prof. Rodney Gumede-Ilva, who is the Senior Director. Mr. Libete Malefo is in charge of all the study abroad and student welfare. Ms. Anissa Khan, who recently joined us last year, is in charge of academic services, which also includes the UJELP language. Mr. Titi Sokonese, you might have interacted with him a lot because he deals with recruitment, marketing of UJ, as well as admissions of all international students. Mine is the portfolio of fundraising and administration. As I said, it's also a new one. It's been in action now for 2 years. And then we also have Mr. Ismail Badruddin, who is our PR communication. He's in charge of all our social media, delegation, ambassador, and all that. Now, at a glance, what is IO for those who don't know, and the things we serve again, if you go and the next one again, please. The services that we offer include, as I mentioned, recruitment of international students on behalf of the faculties. We then also ensure that they enroll and get admitted. So obviously we're just in the process and finalizing that in terms of registration, as you know. Study abroad is encompassing of all the student exchange programs. We have a flagship program called Africa by Bus, which involves students coming from UJ going into other parts of the country, interacting with other students. It's a multidisciplinary approach, but there's also other faculties that also lead in terms of taking their own students and partner with other universities. And then student welfare deals with all things related to immigration visa, and all that clearance, and also accommodation, and anything around welfare and well-being of our international students. Academic service deals with partnerships, how we collaborate with our international partner, because we said we want to be an international university of choice. We also have a leg there of UJALP, which is the International English language program. If students are coming in from different countries and they need to have that program do, they will then do it via this office. They also deal with, in terms of faculties, the work on joint program, joint degrees, and so on. Again, my role is around raising funds, international fundraising, which include research, student and staff mobility, and scholarship. If you go to the next slide, the portfolio then, in terms of funding, encompasses of these three areas. One, which is very key, is scholarship fund. And what I mean by this is that we need to create a scholarship fund in particular that will support our international students. Funding is a crisis, is a problem all across the world. It has been exacerbated now with the COVID-19 that throughout the world everyone has gone through. So there's a big need to support students. And so the role that I am playing is to then go and find scholarship opportunities that will benefit international students. I will explain this in the next slides coming up. And then research is around not just international students, but research as a whole at UJ, which can be both academic and also student research opportunities. And this is obviously through different funding, international funding calls that I coordinate. Mobility is, again, touching on what I mentioned around study abroad, where we get our students involved in mobility. Mobility could be us having a semester program with a partner university, and students, all UJ, not just international, take part in that. The next slide then is around what is there in terms of funding, what is available. Well, there's two types currently. At the moment, we have what we call the internal bursaries. I'm sure some of you might be familiar with this. There's one around undergraduate in particular, and then also postgraduate. Within the undergraduate, to be honest, the funding is very, very limited. We have a small portion of funding or bursaries available to our undergraduate, which we make allocation yearly. The criteria here is that you need to be in your second year and you must have passed all your modules 50% with distinctions, and then the other 50% above 50% mark. The funding is earmarked for only undergraduate, and it's a maximum of, the allocation is up to 30,000. It is very, very limited, but it's still available for those who are interested to apply for this. There's still some funding available there. However, you need to not have owe any fees prior to the current year that you are registered for. Eugenius merit bursary is available as well, also based on merit. One has to be part of this club, and you then selected to receive the bursary. There are SRC funds available as well. And then also those who are doing honors, there are bursaries available, also determined by different faculties. That is, in a nutshell, very small amount of funding available for our undergraduate. Postgraduate is kind of open. If you go to the next page, that you come in at a master's or PhD doctorate level. And so you then get to tap into postgraduate funding, which is the URC. Our local or national students also tap into NRF. I know that the international students are not really eligible for the NRF funding. However, URC funds where one can also tap in. They have different funding. And also the office that manages these bursaries is between the research office as well as the postgraduate school. But there's also an opportunity if you can get a bursary via a supervisor, what they call UJ supervisor linked bursaries, again, based on merit, and they only top up on what you have. Now, when it comes to these kind of ones, especially for postgraduate, some of opportunities come by means of, from my office, identifying the international funding. But for the most part, those kind of scholarships requires one to belong in a research consortium, and one can then get an opportunity of getting their PhD subsidized via that project. So we do advertise these calls through our webpage. Some are directly linked to a faculty, for example. So that could be an opportunity for our masters and PhD to participate in those research consortium, and then get, by means of that, getting their tuition and all other fees paid. I'll give an example. We receive funding from the EU intra-mobility scheme, which is managed by the Faculty of Engineering. There, the opportunity is to create bursaries between South Africa, Malawi, and Nigeria. We are a consortium. We are a lead in that consortium. And so we then invite students to apply for, to do their master's or PhD. It's a 3-year program. It's currently running, and if you wanna have a look at it, it's called ASIM. I will share the link on it. So that's an example of how one can get into an international funding. Next slide, please. Now, the role that I am playing and have to then support international students is outside the internal bursary scheme, is looking into external funding. The only one is that I cannot look internally in terms of South African companies, because they will obviously say we support South African students because there's also a need. The approach here is now going into different countries and hopefully looking into multinational corporates that are in those countries, and also then proposing that they support, or we create what we call the scholarship fund. There's different examples that has happened in the past, where, for example, you will have a company in, let's say in Nigeria, MTN Nigeria, coming in and say, yes, we want to support undergraduate 100 students doing a specific program. That is the approach we are currently in the international office taking. For the purpose of this is looking into where the concentration around our students. So SADC, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya are one of the countries that we are targeting. There were conversations, especially during the lockdown, where there was also issues around data that we've started connecting with these companies. So the campaign is going on, continuing with identified corporates in the specified countries. Definitely Nigeria is part of that. SADC, we're talking about Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Namibia, Zambia, yeah. And in fact, we are gonna have various meetings that we are now arranging. One currently coming up is with Zimbabwe, and the key corporates in Zimbabwe, and the next one would be Nigeria. Again, colleagues, the idea here is to ask or request the companies to support or create a bursary fund for students who are studying at UJ from those countries. The other approach is working with the governments in the countries where they have sponsorship or bursary programs. An example here is, again, Zimbabwe has for a long time been supporting their students through their presidential scholarship program. Unfortunately, that is actually coming to an end this year. So different ministerial government have opportunities for students. And there's one via the NMDS, which is in Lesotho. Gabon has been supporting their students. Sometimes it's not a big cohort. For example, in Gabon, it's really small, but it definitely makes a difference. There's also opportunities such as your NSFAS here in South Africa. In Namibia, they call it NSFAF. So these are agencies our office is also targeting in terms of seeking support. We also then also reach out to embassies. There's no money with embassies, as you will know, but it's also a connection in terms of our point of departure in terms of our fostering relations in different countries. So this is the approach. There is no pot, no funding yet in terms of new funding available, but the office now is charged to create the bursary. Next slide is on the student life. I am gonna touch just on a few things around it. Study abroad, I talk extensively about it. And it's different opportunities our students can take part in. During the lockdown, we started what we called World Cafe seminars, where we engage and get students involved in different seminars. U21 network, you might not be aware of. It's one of the only, UJ is the only African institution in the network. It's a research consortium for different universities in Europe, Asia, and so UJ, we are the only member in it. We're very proud of that. And opportunities are very are there as well for students to partake. They run different competitions and some little funding opportunities. Currently, there's what they call U21 Rise Awards, which I will encourage students to partake in those. The office coordinates those. UGS is one of your body in terms of international support for students. And then we have the alumni, where if you have graduated within UJ, then you become part of the alumni. And by that, you'll be then able to be in the network and become an ambassador. The drive this year within the alumni office is to officially launch chapters in different countries. And so those who have already graduated will form part of those network sessions or network, yeah. So with that, I know that it sounds a bit like, wow, there's nothing there, but the office is here to say we are aware, and this is the reason that there is a fundraising unit, in particularly to assist our international students with funding. And so, yeah, that is in a nutshell what funding is, or the fundraising portfolio within the international office is charged with. I will stop now and also then take any other questions if there is. That's the end of the presentation, David. We can take it out. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Questions or comments? If not, then I guess.
Hello.
We can hear you barely though.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Bisi. Thank you so much for the information, because the general understanding is that when you are not informed, there's high chances that one is deformed. So, and we are calling if anybody has any questions for further clarification, so we can bring it forward now. So, and in absence of that, I don't think I've seen any hand up for question here. I want to believe that we are very, very clear in terms of that. I've not seen.
There's a question from Michael Austin.
Okay.
He's asking, when are the URC scholarship application open? I'm not too sure about the date because these are managed by the postgraduate, but I can also, let me put my email here and then I can update everyone about the application dates and so on. I've put my email on the chat box.
Oh, okay, that's very great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. We are very grateful for that. So, Mr. President,
there's something about, sorry.
There's some other questions in the chat box. Please look at the chat box.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm looking at them now. So, okay, we've checked the one of, okay, URC. So the next question is that if I get the internal bursary to cover for second year, am I still eligible to apply third year? If I have gotten, yes.
Yes, you can apply for the third year as long as you don't owe any previous fees from your previous year. So that is the undergraduate internal bursary, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So the next question now is that, hi everyone. So what funding are available for postgraduate, diploma/honors students? So do we have funding basically for people in their honors programs? I think that's the basic question.
So the most of this funding for postgraduate with the postgraduate school, they advertise this through their page. Sometimes, like I was explaining, through our office, one can get the funding through different international calls, but those ones are mostly around one having to be part of a research consortium. But an individual scholarship is definitely via the postgraduate school, in some cases, the research office. There's a hand from Banjol.
Good morning, Ms. Mutombi. Thank you very much for the session. My own question is there a limit to the amount that one can secure in a year?
You're asking about the undergraduate bursary?
No, postgraduates.
Yeah, well, I think there are limits and also criteria, which is based on the merit. I wouldn't know exactly the maximum limit, but there is definitely a limit. And also different criteria as, for example, some of them are, the supervisor's bursary is a top up to what you already have. So yeah, there definitely is a limit.
Because I've on 2 occasions been denied the supervisor bursary. It was awarded, I mean, they were awarded to me on those 2 occasions, but they were not paid into my account because they said I'm benefiting from GS 4.0.
Yeah, that is you see, those ones are managed within the faculty. So the faculty will determine the criteria and the selection thereof. So I wouldn't really be involved in that space from the international office.
Okay, then I also want to use this opportunity to appeal to your office, because every year, I don't know if it is only me, every year I struggle for the clearance. It's always delayed and it's affecting one thing or the other at the beginning of the year. For instance, I don't normally get my stipend at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
From that office.
Yeah, and I understand that the frustration that, because it also delays everything. Some of these, especially with clearance, immigration, we also don't have control thereof, because this is through our home affairs. But we try and assist where we can, and obviously, Mr. Malefo's study abroad or student welfare office are the ones who are handling those clearances. But like I'm saying, we try all our best to do what we can in terms of helping students, but we don't really have much say when it comes to the clearance by the Home Affairs. Okay, I see you are saying okay, thank you. I have put in the ASIM website as well for those who might want to have a look and interested in looking into opportunities available via this scholarship that I mentioned for master's and PhD. Yeah. So any other question?
There is no question for now.
Okay. No, once again, thank you for inviting the international office. I wish it was a bigger group of my colleagues to explain other things, but we also have our, what we call town halls. I think we'll have 2 or so this year. We invite all international students to come in, and then we discuss any pertaining issues and concerns can be raised during that platform or session. So I will also encourage you to take part when we have those, because now we've got the whole international office coming in and explain different issues.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Toby. So we are very grateful for your time and for the information. So at different times, so we will just, what's it called? Get the update of the town halls meeting so that we have, larger portion of information that will also be very beneficial to us. So on behalf of the whole association, I want to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Great people. So I think you've heard everything that has been said, and I want to believe, without any iota of doubt, that has been very beneficial. So these are the things we want to keep exploring. So at different times, so that we have better knowledge of updated information of what is we have to do at different points in time. And it's on this note that I want to bring on Dr. Abiodun Egbetokun to come and discuss with us the principles that guide, research procedures, how to research, how to even do this thing that has brought us to this institution. So how do we go about it? A whole lot of people have talked, and I will not lie about this, a whole lot of people have talked on how they just want to start or what they need to put together or how they just need to put their work out there. So I, with a whole lot of joy and the honor that has been bestowed upon me, I want to welcome Dr. Abiodun Egbetokun. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, good. Good afternoon. Can you please confirm that you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Beautiful. I'm a very dark person, so I'm not sure how well you can see me, but at least if you can hear me, it's already quite good. So I had to run out of a very important meeting that I'm having here to do this because I'm passionate about capacity building, particularly among young people on the continent of Africa. I believe this is very crucial. I have my slides. I'm not sure if I will be able to share. Okay, I think I can. I see the button. So I don't want to waste your time at all. We will go as quickly as we can, but I will also try not to be too fast, so as not to make the whole thing look like feel like a scene from a movie. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm speaking on research philosophy and methodology. Now, it took a while before I settled for this approach to the presentation because I made the assumption off the top of my head that you will all be at different stages of your research. There will be those who are at the beginning, there will be those who are at the middle, and there might just be those who are a bit more advanced in the process. So I needed to settle for something that I'm sure will be relevant across board. But it's not possible to say everything there is to say about how to do research in one session like this. So please forgive me. Let me ask for your apologies ahead. Let me make an apology ahead in case I have not said anything that you expect me to say. It's just simply because it's impossible to say everything in one session. And I do believe that there's going to be time at the end of the day to ask some questions. And I'm always available by email. And if you want to have a repeat of this, I will be more than willing to oblige. So for today, let's settle for research philosophy and methodology. This, I believe, would help no matter the stage of your research that you are at the moment. Now, I'm going to do these under four broad. Just conclude. I will start with a discussion of the research process. What exactly should you have in mind when we say we want to do research? And so, how does philosophy come into play? I'm sure that you may have at one time or the other heard the expression research philosophy. So what exactly are we trying to say when we use the expression research philosophy? And there are two things that should come out directly from your research philosophy, and that's the design you will use and your method. And trust me, this is relevant irrespective of your discipline, whether you're in medicine, the build engineering and the built environment, or social sciences and all that. So don't think that philosophy is for the philosophers. In this case, philosophy becomes something that everybody should be worried about, should bother about. So your design, your method, both should stem from your research philosophy. So in the course of the presentation, I will spend a bit more time on philosophy, partly because it is very crucial, but also because some of the terminologies are a bit tongue twisting. Okay, you will realize what I'm talking about when we get there, and then I will conclude. I hope to stay within the time given to me, I promise. So I will do my best to do just that. So once again, let me thank the leadership of the association for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I do not take it for granted. And each time I have this opportunity, I take it with a sense of responsibility, knowing that it's an opportunity not to show what I know, but for us to learn together in this process. So let's get started with the research process. Now, this graphic you're looking at is quite old. I've been using it for I don't know how many years now. It basically breaks down the research process into 4. The first stage is when you prepare for your research. This is when you are looking for your research question. You have to explore the literature extensively. For those of you with the social sciences or humanities background, this is the point where they tell you to do a literature review matrix. I don't know if you know what that means. This is when you read, as you read one paper, you type out the author of the paper. Basically, you create an Excel document that has about 6 or 7 columns, one for the author of the paper, the year in which the paper was published, the journal in which it was published. Sometimes you may want to indicate whether it's open or closed access, and what are the key objectives of the paper, what methods did they use, where did they get their data from, what are the main findings, okay? So it is in doing this, by the way, I'm seeing some hands. I hope there are no, yes, the slides are in fact in presentation mode and they are moving for me.
Oh, we
can you
see,
confirm?
No, we can't see them from here, sir.
You can't see that? Okay, let me stop and start it again. Let me stop and start it again. I guess it's a technical problem because it's working fine for me. So I will do just that again now.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. So what kind of screen do you see now?
We can see stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
Absolutely. That's where you should see. So let me just check that this is working well. What do you see now?
Research philosophy.
Okay, so we're good. And is this in presentation mode now? Just to confirm.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So I think, I don't know, it was a technical problem. It was working fine for me initially. Okay, so I was talking about stage 1 where you identify your research question and you basically start with a literature review matrix in an Excel document or whatever software you use. And then once you've settled for a research question, you ensure that you relate with your research question. Now, this is perhaps the most important piece of advice I'm going to give you today. Your research question has to be something that you can relate with. If you cannot relate with it, if you're not passionate about it, at any point during your research process that the going gets tough, that's the point where you feel like quitting, where you feel that the universe is colluding against you, where you feel that nobody is supporting you, where you ask yourself, why exactly under heaven am I doing this? What have I gotten myself into? It is the relatedness that you have, the connection that you have with your research objectives or your research question that keeps you going. So don't you ever start a research on any particular subject or a topic just because you like the guy who's going to supervise you, okay? It's extremely important that you do something that you really want to do. It's been said several times that if you cannot explain it to your grandma in the village or to a 5-year-old, then you don't know it. So the research that you are going to be able to explain to your grandma in the village or to a 5-year-old will be the research that you relate with, that you understand and you are passionate about. You know, I've always said that your thesis, whether it's at master's level or at PhD level, is not worth too much of your life, because there is in fact research that shows that, and this may shock you, there is research that shows that after you have submitted your thesis, maybe if you are lucky, 15 to 20 people will read it in your entire lifetime. Okay? It is what you do with your research afterwards that counts. So if you pick up a research career, do you publish papers based on your research thesis? If you pick up a career in industry, Do you use some of the insights you learned during the time that you were doing your research in your work? You know, do you bring that knowledge to bear on your work? These are the things that will indicate, you know, that you have indeed added some value to yourself. So don't you ever spend 4 years of your life or 3 years of your life or 1 year of your life on something that you don't like, because that thing at the end of the day will not be useful. You will get a degree that you know, will be part of what you put on your CV, but that may end up not leaving anything with you if it's on a topic, if you've done research on a topic that you cannot relate with. And so once you've settled all of that, you move on to stage 2, where you look for resources. And it's good that the speaker before me was talking about funding. That's part of the resources you need. You find these resources, you select what you need, you gather, you collaborate. And then you process information. This is what you do when you're doing your analysis and your testing and all that. And of course, this brings me back to the point I was making earlier. You transfer your learning. Your writing your thesis is part of the learning. You know, publishing articles based on your research is part of learning, and whatever you choose to do after that. Okay, so this is what the research process looks like. Now, the philosophy, design, and method that we're going to be talking about now sit at different points, at different stages of the process. Philosophy sits at stage 1. That's where you define what you're doing. And it is your philosophy that helps you do that. That's what we're going to be talking about next. Now, the kind of resources you need, including data and how you process them, that is stages 2 and 3. That's where your design, your research design, and your research method, that's where they both sit. And by the way, for those who are not yet familiar with this, or who may not yet be familiar with this, there's a big difference between research method and research methodology. We're going to talk about that. And that distinction is very important. You know, many of us go through our programs without understanding this distinction. And that's why sometimes when you see pieces of research writing, you wonder whether the person who wrote it understands how to do research at all. But let's take it one after the other. We'll start by talking about research philosophy. When we hear this word philosophy, we tend to think about philosophers, humanities, you know, and the arts. But as far as research is concerned, research philosophy has a very specific meaning. It is the system of beliefs and assumptions that you make about what you are looking for. That is knowledge. The whole reason we do research is to gain knowledge, all right? So what do you believe? What assumptions have you made, or are you making, or are you going to make about the nature and the evolution of the knowledge that you're going after? Let me illustrate with an example. So supposing you want to study something that relates to how we can reconfigure our living spaces to help us to be better able to deal with pandemics, okay? This is coming in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So you have a set of assumptions about how a normal living space should look like. You would have a set of assumptions about how pandemics evolve. Some of these assumptions could come from existing literature, okay? And then you will have a system of beliefs, a set of things that are already settled in your mind about how pandemics relate to living spaces. Again, this could be based on your reading of existing research. You see, it is this kind of things that when they come together, make up your research philosophy. And whether you admit it or not, it is these systems of beliefs and assumptions that dictate what you do. Okay, this is why, for instance, if your supervisor says, this is how we should do it, on the basis of your beliefs and assumptions, you may tend to argue. And you may not even know where that argument is coming from. You look at yourself and you'll be like, why am I arguing with this professor? It's probably your philosophical underpinnings may be slightly different from your own supervisor's philosophical underpinning. And this is very, very important. So why should we care about philosophy? It's because it sets the boundary of what we can do in a meaningful way. It doesn't just set the boundaries. Your philosophy doesn't just tell you that, okay, if you want to study this topic, this is how to approach it, or that is how to approach it, but it also defines the parameters. It sets the boundary of what makes sense for you to do. And this is crucial because when you have your research topic before you, or the broad area that you want to do research on, not everything will make sense. And if you see the illustration that I have here on the slide, it's about, you are trying to understand historical issues in a company, okay? Now, you would have a system of beliefs. You would assume that, okay, this is a company that has a rapid layoff because it's in a rapidly evolving context, say ICT, okay? Now, if you want to understand historical issues, no matter how rapid their turnover, staff turnover is, you won't go and collect data from employees that they hired yesterday or day before yesterday or 2 days ago, because this is history. You want to talk to employees that have been there for quite some time, even if they have left the firm, okay? So you see how philosophy guides what you can meaningfully do. If you talk to current employees who joined a few months back, they will tell you all the things they know and all the things they have read, but they will not help you to understand why those things they have read may be true, or why those things they know may or may not be true. You want to speak to people who were there when these things were happening. So that's how philosophy defines the limits of what you can meaningfully do. Not just the limits of what you can do, but the limits of what will make sense in relation to your research topic. And so this, now let's come to the meat of it. How do you develop a philosophy? You know, all of that background is useful, but the most important thing we want to do here is to come to an understanding of, if I want to do research, how do I come to my own philosophy, or how do I know that I have developed my own philosophy? Okay, all right. So there are 3 things that interrelate. As I said, your research philosophy is connected to the beliefs and assumptions that you make. And then that is also connected to your research design. All 3 are interwoven. So sometimes you find yourself having to go and adjust your philosophy on the basis of changes in your beliefs and assumptions once you discover new knowledge, or because of your research design, you make changes to your philosophy. All of these things are intertwined. They are interwoven, and it's important for us to understand that. So what I'm going to do next is to take you through 3 main assumptions and 4 main extremes in relation to research design. So this is like a matrix, right? And then we're going to walk through the different possibilities that we have as far as research philosophies are concerned. Okay, there are 3 major assumptions that help us to set apart different research philosophies. The first one is ontology. By the way, if I may ask, has anyone ever heard any of these terms before? Ontology, epistemology, or axiology? Who has? Anyone?
Kind of.
When the whole room is quiet now, you know you are beginning to speak some kinds of grammar that, okay, so I'll try to break them down, okay? Now, ontology has to do with the assumptions we make about the nature of reality. Reality here refers to your topic, okay? Okay, someone said only ontology, that's cool. So ontology is about what we assume to be true. And usually when you do research from an ontological approach, you are interested in what you are studying, the object of your study, and how many different classes there are, and you try to explain phenomena. So for instance, if your study is on an exploration of something, or an evaluation of the link between something and something, then you are most likely working from an ontological assumption, even if you don't know it, okay? So any study that focuses on a particular set of objects that has to do with classifications, putting one thing in one group and the other, or explaining phenomena. A lot of research that is done in the natural and physical sciences, chemistry, physics, where certain laws are either true or not true, 1 + 1 is either 2 or not true, and so on, they are ontological, all right? And then you have the epistemological assumptions, which have to do with, now notice that ontology has to do with the nature of reality, what we know to be true, our object. Epistemology has to do with what we know about those objects, okay? What do we know and what more is there to know? Usually when you do research where you try to check theories, existing theories in a new context, okay? These are all related to epistemology. So for instance, many of us will be in this category where you say that, okay, existing theories of human resources, for example, or existing theories of architecture argue that you do one thing in one way and then you get certain kinds of outcome. But these theories have been based on observations in the Western context or in the European context or in the context of developed countries. Do this hold true in the context of developing countries? Many of us will be in that category. That's where your research question is likely to be coming from. This is epistemological because it's about what we already know. Why do we hold that thing that we know to be true? And what more is there to be known about that thing? That's epistemological. Then axiology puts the man, the human, at the center of the whole thing. And then it has to do with how do our own values, our worldview, and the worldview of our research participants or the subjects or objects that we are studying, how do they influence what we are doing? So once you start talking about ethics, you start talking about values, you start talking about norms and principles, you're already going into the axiological realm. And this is usually found in research that has to do with ethnography or anthropocentric research that puts the individual at the center. A lot of research that has to do with history of peoples, with literary arts and so on, they are axiological because then you begin to question what is right and what is not right and so on. So within the limits of the time that we have, that's about the best we can do. But as we go on, it will get clearer and clearer in case it's not yet entirely clear. Now, along the three axes of these three main philosophical assumptions, we have four main extremes. There is the objectivist approach, which ignore what people think. You hold things to be true based on certain laws, certain fundamental laws, or certain fundamental principles. This is what you find a lot in the natural sciences. There are the three Newton's laws of motion. They are true, whether you are in South Africa or you are in Nigeria or you are in South Korea or wherever you are, they are true. The first law says that a body continues in a state of rest or motion in a straight line unless compelled to act otherwise by an external body. Okay, that's objectivist. We know this to be true. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. But the subjectivist approach, of course, from the word subjective, is subject to different interpretations. And that's why, for instance, when you take a theory from one context to another, you suddenly see that certain relationships within the theoretical framework are no longer true once the context changes. That's the subjectivist approach, where we begin to think that context matters. And then there is the deductive versus the inductive approach, where in the deductive approach, you go from theory to data. So you deduce supporting information for your theory from the data. And in the inductive, you try to elicit theoretical relationships from the data that you are looking at, okay? And each one of them has its own advantages and disadvantages, but we will not dwell on that today. I will leave you. I'm going to recommend a particular text that you can read that will help a lot. A few chapters of this is openly available online, but I'm sure that you should be able to get a copy from your university library. So let's look at how these three main assumptions and the four main extremes come together before we go ahead to talk about research design. So under the ontological assumption, which has to do with the nature of reality, as we said, there are two broad approaches. There's the objectivist approach or the objectivist philosophy, where it doesn't matter what people think, we believe certain things to be true or not true. And then there's a subjectivist approach where we assume that things may or may not be true depending on what people think. So if you are working in the natural sciences, your research philosophy is most likely going to be ontological and objectivist because it's based on laws and principles. 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 molecule of oxygen under normal atmospheric conditions will always give you water. That is objective. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks, okay? It doesn't matter whether you are far right or far left. Your political manipulation is inconsequential here. But if, for instance, you say that if you do it under room temperature, it gives you water. If you do it under, other kinds of temperature, it gives you something else, then we are beginning to go into the realm of subjectivism. Most of the research in the social sciences will fall in this category. And then under epistemology, which is about what we know to be true and why that is true, there is a positivist approach. Again, this is the world of the natural sciences where we are obsessed with observations, okay? Our deductive reasoning. Again, for instance, we know from theory that under atmospheric conditions, normal pressure, normal temperature, 2 molecules of hydrogen, 1 molecule of water, of oxygen will always give us water. That's positivist. This is what we expect. This is what we know to be true. It is only when we see an exception that we begin to ask questions. Whereas in the interpretivist approach, we are asking questions before we make observations. Okay, why? Because what we think is true is linked to what people think. Okay, and a lot of research that requires the mixed methods approach, where you do some qualitative and then some quantitative data collection and analysis, rests in this domain of epistemological interpretivism, where you want to be sure that you have captured nuances that have to do with language, that have to do with what is held as right or wrong in a particular society. Let me give you a practical illustration. Supposing that you're doing a study on, say, healthcare financing, for example, or no. Let me use something a bit more neutral, that you're doing research on home financing in South Africa, for example. So you already have some predefined or pre-identified or some modes of how home financing in South Africa that you are aware of. But you don't take this to your research subjects under the interpretivist approach. What you do is you do some qualitative discussions with them first and ask, could you please tell me what are the available home financing options that exist, okay? And then you guide them, they provide a retinue of answers. You then take these answers to them again, a different group, and ask them, which of these options do you use and why do you use these options, all right? That's how the interpretivist approach works. And then we have the realism, which itself is broken into either direct or critical. This is the research approach or the research philosophy that accounts for the lived experience of people. And that's direct realism. And under the critical realism, we assume that what people think or everything they tell us could be as false as it is also likely to be true. So we take their lived experience as imagery, a representation of what they think. And so this is why, for instance, when you do historical research, you ask people to tell you what happened several years back. There is something that you are always warned against, and that thing is called recall bias. It is because of the existence of critical realism, where we assume that people may not have a perfect memory or a perfect ability, rather, to remember what happened in the past. Okay, so we think that whatever they are telling us is a representation of what might be true, not necessarily true. So having this kind of understanding will help you to put together all the information that you are gathering and then to make sense out of it. And now, the last one under philosophy is axiology. The key category of research philosophy under axiology is pragmatism. And this is where we go from a problem to a practical solution that is meant to inform future action, taking into account what is likely to work. You remember I mentioned earlier when I was discussing axiology that it accounts for the ethics, people's values, their norms, societal conventions and so on and so forth. So it's important to distinguish between axiology here and what they tell you to get, ethical approval. That's not what axiology is, okay? Axiology is about pragmatism. It's about you picking up a research question that you want to have a practical use at the end of the day. And no research is likely to have practical use if it does not have some element of axiology in it. Okay, so far you would have seen that as far as research philosophies are concerned, they are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Your research philosophy could be a marriage of different kinds. And in discussing them, I've also tried to give examples that can help you to situate yourself along the entire continuum. Now, if we had the luxury of time, I normally would have said, okay, let's pause and take a few questions here, but I would go on anyway. I mean, I trust that you guys are smart. And you're very smarter than myself, actually. So let me tie everything I've said so far together with this quote. This quote is from Saunders et al. It's a very good book. You will see the full reference to the book at the end of my presentation. That the belief about the nature of the world, that's ontology, that an inquirer adopts will affect their belief about the nature of knowledge. That's what they assume to be true in that world. That's epistemology. And this will in turn influence their belief as to how that knowledge can be uncovered. You know, I said earlier that research is all about, uncovering knowledge, learning more. And that's what methodology is all about. But before we talk about methodology, we need to first discuss one key thing that arises directly out of our research philosophy, and that is the research design, okay? This is to give you an example of how a research philosophy is expressed this is one of my papers. It was published in 2015. So what we do, you see that this is the focus of the paper down there. It's specifically, we examine the hypothesis that maintaining a larger portfolio of information or knowledge sources tends to be less relevant as a firm becomes more innovative. That's our focus. And the philosophy is interpretivist, okay? And why is it interpretivist? Because we are already questioning something that was true in one context. Studies have shown that breadth of knowledge sources improves innovation performance up to a certain limit. And the question is, does this hold true at all level of innovativeness? We're bringing context into the equation here. That's why it's interpretivist. And how has that influenced our method? Look at the discussion of the method here. It's interpretivist in the sense that it's already looking for variations as a result of the context that we are studying, okay? We said the hypothesis in this paper concern relationships at different points in the conditional distribution of the dependent variables. So we apply quantile regression. Why quantile regression? It estimates the effects of the different explanatory variables along the entire conditional distribution of the innovation performance variable, and so on and so forth. So it allows us to escape the homoscedasticity assumption. I don't want to say too much about these different kinds of methodology, methodological terminologies. Otherwise, it takes us out of scope. But this is how philosophy goes from objective, derived from your objective, and then influences the method. So I put this here just to illustrate. I sent this slide already, so you can share afterwards and go through, and then we can discuss questions. So research design, what does it mean? Just as philosophy means your assumptions, research design means the methods and procedures that you want to use to gather and analyze all the variables that are relevant. Now, I'm using variables here not to refer to age, sex, country of origin, and so on alone. Variables are also relevant in all other contexts, all other research contexts. So for instance, if you are in the natural sciences or in engineering, the kind of things that varies and influence the performance of an engine, for example, those are all variables. So wind speed, quality of gasoline if you're talking about a vehicle, and so on and so forth. Now, there are two things that a good research design will help us to achieve. Number one is that it minimizes bias in our data, okay? And then number two, it maximizes the accuracy of the results that we're going to get. If your research design is good, for those of you who have advanced to the point that you already have discussed your research design with your supervisor, or that you are thinking about it, you have to subject it to these 4 tests. Number 1, is it neutral? Are my assumptions unbiased? Is it reliable? Supposing that somebody was going to come tomorrow to repeat, the kind of research that I am doing, and they want to pick up on my method, are they likely to get the same results? Is it valid? Do the results accurately mirror the phenomenon that I am studying? And is it generalizable? Can we take it to go beyond the context that I have studied? This is one of the reasons why, if you do good research as a PhD candidate, for example, and your theory is solid, your philosophy is strong, your method is appropriate, and your results are generalizable, chances are that if you want to publish, for example, you are more likely to get published than somebody who does research just for the sake of doing research and just for the sake of finishing the thesis. So it's important for you to subject your research design to these 4 tests. Is it neutral? Is it reliable? Is it valid? Is it generalizable? Now, one very mundane example that I like to give at this point in relation to this is, don't ever do what we call cherry picking of results. Okay, a lot of us do this, especially when we are starting out as researchers. You run 7 or 8 different types of regression using the exact same variables, right? So you do linear regression, you do logit regression, you do another kind of regression, another kind, and another kind. And then you pick the one that has the most significant variables, and that's the one that you report. That's what is called cherry picking. That kind of method is not reliable. Even if you work in a context that you don't have to do regressions, all right? Don't cherry pick results. So you test a prototype, and you test a particular configuration, you test another configuration, you test another configuration, and you pick the one that performs best. Even though you already know that the one that is performing best in the lab for you cannot be scaled up, but you report it anyway just so that you will pass. That's called cherry picking, and it is wrong because the results will not be generalizable. And that's why, for instance, sometimes when some people finish their master's or they finish their PhD, it becomes difficult for them to make progress. Even though they seem to have done excellently well at the previous level, it is because they have done something that is based on a flawed design. Okay, it's very, very important to bear that in mind. So let me walk you through 3 broad groups of research design. The first one is exploratory. Now, in exploratory research, what you are doing is that you're looking for hypotheses to test. We don't know what is true or what is not true. So we want to minimize the probability of type 1 error. Type 1 error here refers to well, in simple terms, it's called false positives. That's when you reject the null hypothesis, even though it is the null that is true. You know, the null hypothesis is always that there is no relationship between 2 things. Okay, so when you have type 1 error, what you have done is that you have assumed that there's a relationship when in fact there is truly no relationship. Okay, so it is exploratory research that helps us to minimize that kind of error. Exploratory research is what you are doing when you are asking questions about that are not directional. So for instance, the relationship between early marriage and what do they VVF, vesico vaginal fistula. Okay, there is a lot of research in public health that says that those 2 things are linked. But if you are studying a context where research has never been carried out before, you just never know, because some of these ailments are also connected to people's genetic composition. All right, so you want to minimize the error that there is a link when in fact you don't know. So you don't go into that kind of context with an objectivist approach, with an interpretivist approach. With an objectivist approach. You go there with a subjectivist approach, with an interpretivist approach. You want to ask questions, okay? Now, the confirmatory design is when you already know that relationships exist, but you don't know what the direction of relationship is. So you test hypotheses. You don't know, for instance, whether wind speed, you know for sure, for instance, that wind speed could slow a vehicle down, okay? Or, no, sorry, let me recast that. wind speed could affect the speed of a vehicle, but you don't know whether it will slow it down or speed it up. And you will agree with me that it depends on the direction of the wind. If a vehicle is traveling in the same direction as the wind, it becomes faster. If it's traveling against the wind, then it will become slower. But let's assume that we didn't know that. The kind of research we want to do is confirmatory, because we already know that the hypothesis is true, that there's a relationship between wind speed and a vehicle. So we do confirmatory research so that we don't go and accept the no that says that there is no relationship, when in fact there is a relationship. Okay, we want to know the direction of effect because we already know that there's an effect. And then there is the grounded theory design, which allows you to generalize your hypothesis and develop a theory. So there you're already going beyond whether this is true or not, or whether there's a relationship or not, or whether something exists or not. We already know it exists. The question we want to ask under grounded theory is, does it always exist? So is it always the case that when a vehicle is traveling towards the wind or in the direction of the wind, it is faster? Is it always true that when it's traveling against the wind, it is slower? Once we establish this kind of thing using the grounded theory design, we can then develop a theory. Okay? So that's how research design works. These are the broad groups. And under those 4 broad groups, there are 6 possibilities, or 12 of them actually, each one versus the other, the opposite. You can do experimental research or non-experimental. Experimental is lab-based, and there are field experiments too, actually. In social sciences, you could do field versus non-experimental, where you know, in economics, they like to say all things being equal. Indeed, in experimental research, what you are doing is all things being equal. You hold everything else constant, and you are able to vary only your variables, and then you study their effects, okay? There is also the descriptive design versus the inferential or correlational research. In the descriptive research, what you are doing is just trying to study the trend of certain variables or observing some phenomena over time. And in inferential, you are trying to relate those phenomena or those variables to other variables, you know, in a way to draw inferences on the relationships. You can do reviews, a review design, as against a meta-analytic design. What you do in a review design is look at the existing body of research and bring out lessons from there, try to conceptualize that, to put that in a framework. You see, the truth of the matter is that most of us, at one time or the other, will combine multiple designs. In fact, there is no way you will do a good research without doing a good review. So all your research designs, no matter which one you are claiming or you are writing down that you are using, will involve reviews. Okay? All right. And then, yeah, I'm going towards the end now. And then you have the qualitative versus quantitative versus mixed methods. There's ethnographic versus anthropological, and then cross-sectional versus longitudinal or cohort or cross-sequential. These are all just terminologies that sound big. They are simple and easy for you to relate with. So let's quickly distinguish between research methodology and method, and then we'll be going towards the end. As I said in the beginning, methodology, there's a big difference between methodology and method. Methodology is your overall approach, okay? And method is the tool that you use. So when you write up your research methodology section, you are correct to use the term research methodology. But within there, you are already talking about, say, for instance, your sample or your data, materials and methods and things like that. You see, each time you use that word method, what you're talking about is the exact tool that I'm going to use. So your method is a component of your methodology. It's important to understand that. Research methodology is made up of 3 components. There's your philosophy, there is the method that derives from the philosophy, and then there is the justification for that method. That's why that chapter in your research, your thesis, is not called research methods, it's called research methodology. But when you write a journal article, many times you will write research method. That's true, because inside that section in your paper, you only describe how you collected your data, how you analyzed, and how you discussed your results. So again, let me illustrate that with an example. The same example that I used before. Let's just look at the difference between method and methodology here. This is the method. We apply quantile regression. That is the method, okay? It goes into the realm of methodology when we start explaining why we made that choice, the philosophy behind it, being interpretivist. We are questioning what has been held true in one context, in another context, and we're looking at variations in the existing results. Okay, so you see the difference here between method and methodology. I think that distinction is very, very crucial. So I'm going to leave you with this that brings everything I have said so far together. You see, this is called the research onion. Again, it's from Saunders. You start from the philosophy, and then you go to how you want to approach what you are doing, to your methodological choice. The specific strategies you make after that is your method. And then you may want to consider the time horizon as well. That's when you distinguish between whether you are doing cross-sectional research or longitudinal research, and then finally your techniques and procedures. You see, if you have a mental picture of this research onion, then defining and describing your research methodology in general will become a lot easier for you. And then you have a good hand of your research process, so you know what to do per time. So to conclude, let me just conclude with a set of general tips that I believe that will be very, very useful as you go along. The first one is that it doesn't matter what your discipline is, go and learn some basic statistics. It's crucial, mean, median, mode, and all that. Understand how distributions work. I'm talking of statistical distributions now. And then it's important to quickly understand how to collect data and what is possible with what kinds of data. Know the limits of your data so you don't go and start making claims that are not possible with your data. I have read many research theses where, by the way, some of you may not know, I'm an external examiner for the Faculty of Economics and Business now in UJ. So I examine PhD and master's thesis. I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And I see statements like one variable has an effect on the other, or one variable influences the other. In a cross-sectional study, that is fundamentally wrong. You cannot say that A influences B unless you have studied their relationship over time. If you have studied their relationship only once, the only thing you can say is that there is a relationship between A and B, okay? And that's why causal inferences are very difficult. Be careful. And everything you do, make sure that you keep a tight record, a detailed record, because replicability is key in research. So I will stop there and hoping that there will be one or two questions. This is the reference I was talking about earlier, and a very nice essay that is pitched at postgraduate students that I found online that would be very useful. I already sent my slides to Love. I think you will get it in your email and you can share it with you after the session. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you very much. Yeah, so great people, it's been a very hot session, I will not lie. It's been a very hot one. So, and where we are right now, so we move from the ontology of the whole matter to the epistemology, to the philosophy of the matter. And I just want you to understand that the methodology of your question might not be the same method of your question. So what I'm just trying to say in a nutshell is that we are the question and answer was a conversation. And I want you to believe with me that if we give room, I am very sure that Dr. Egbetokun has a lot more to bring to us. But also the sweet part is that we are not going to exhaust him today. So, you know, when you have that sweet food and you are eating it, you know, bit by bit, it serves you longer than when you want to just use your spoon to swallow your Indomie like all at once. So we are at the point of a question and answer so far on what we have discussed. So, and while we are expecting people to raise up their hand and, you know, put forward their questions, I want to take this time to deeply appreciate Dr. Egbetokun. So I don't know what words are failing me right now to express our deep gratitude for this time. So like the way, I mean, just when you started, till where you finish. To be very candid, I've written a full thesis. Like, I've written it, and when you stopped, I dropped my pen. Like, in my head, I was writing because I pick it from philosophy, pick everything, and I want to believe that every other person here will have that same feeling of, oh, we are what's it called now? Picturing that, like, oh, I am writing with this mindset, and it's a journey. Thank you so much, sir. So, do we have questions? Let me check the inbox now. So, we have okay. Folaromi is thanking Dr. Egetokun. And so all of us are very, very grateful, very, very grateful. Mr. Tulu is also saying many thanks. So we have a question now, Doctor. So, okay. So the person is just saying, so can Doctor make his email address available for future assistance? Energy tapper. So he's
that's not the problem. I'm typing it in the chat box right now. It's not the problem at all. It's already in the chat box.
If at any time we have seen this image of a whole lot of wire connection in Nigeria, and we have one NEPA guy on it, and the caption on it is like, if you want to get food from a Nigerian party, you need this kind of connection. So it is very it is just very, very okay with us, because Nigerians, we are always very proactive about, oh, this thing will be useful, will be very useful. So yeah, I also need the email. I've seen it now. I've also tapped. So let me not discourage any other person from on tapping. So thank you so much. Thank you. So I want to believe we are very clear, because the lecture was just very clear, straight to the point, and it is relatable. All of us understand, this area that we are saying so much, sir. So thank you so much. It is just like somebody reacted that is aptly captured. So like from the lower and the upper band, you have captured and said so many things that some of us, we also like to, bring as a reaction to that in particular. Thank you so much. We are very grateful for your time. So, and at this junction, we want to say a very big thank you again, Dr. Egetokun. You have been resourceful. You have been, a guardian in this context, and we know, we are very sure that with this joy in your heart that you have received us with, we know categorically that you will always want to receive us the more, because written all over you is this aura of one who is very passionate about showing people the right way, and we are very grateful to have you in our midst. Thank you so much. Thank you for today, sir.
It's my pleasure, and you're always welcome. You have my email address now. You're always welcome to get in touch. I'm more than happy to help at any time.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of the symposium. I really
thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
sir.
very much. Bye.
Yeah, we are very grateful. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah. Okay, great people. I hope you are still enjoying it. So we promise we're going to that this program will last us till 1 o'clock. We are still working on that. We are working tirelessly to make sure that we finish at the right time. So right about now, we want to see if the international office is around here, or the international student representative, who was to say something the other time before we kicked off. So I wouldn't know if he's still here with us. We just have, a word of goodwill from him. And just right after that, we want to go to security matters. And we hope that we have the UG Protection Service here with us. If not, we will take the discussion in another dimension. But do we have the international student rep here?
I think he has gone.
Oh, okay. And so can we confirm if we have any representative from international office too? Okay.
User protection services.
Okay, so so we have user protection service representative here, right?
No, sir.
Okay, so yeah, be that as it may, I have the privilege to call on the PRO of this great association and the treasurer. They will lead the discussion around what's it called? The security matters, and eventually we'll make it, a general discussion. We have, perception, guidance. What have you noticed? How did you mitigate it? What did you do? How did you do it? What are your advices for people or stuff like that? But then leading the discussion will be the PRO and the treasurer. So I will leave the floor now for these two great people to lead the discussion around security matters. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I hear you.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you. It's been a great time so far at the symposium, and I believe we're all learning, and it's another time to learn on security matters. So I'll be handling this session with the PRO, Mr. George. Can you just quickly introduce yourself, Mr. George?
Good day, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So that's the voice of Mr. George. I'm going to take it over from now. So we are members of the executives of Nigerian students in UJ. My name is Mrs. Okolu Aiwashokun. I'm the treasurer, and the voice you just heard is Mr. George, is the PRO. So as executive council, we've decided to put together a security bulletin. You can see it showing on your screen. It's just a few pages of security talks and tips that are very relevant for both new students and new entrants into University of Johannesburg. We all know that every environment has its own peculiarities, and it's important that we are aware of our current learning and living environment. And of course, that's currently Joburg in South Africa. I'm sure some of us must have read one or two things about Johannesburg, maybe while you were trying to come for physical on-premise study in South Africa. So you must have read some things about South Africa, but we are not here to scare you, but we are just here to tell you as it is that there are peculiarities in this environment as well, just like we have peculiarities in Nigeria. So you should be aware of those peculiarities and know how you go about your daily activities in your newfound environment. So for us to be aware of an environment, we might be aware by experiences or by information, and really it's best to be aware of an environment by information. So those who have had experiences, have given the tips, and we have put that together as a bulletin for new entrants and new students into University of Johannesburg. So please, we do not want us to fall victims because we are not aware. And this was a general consensus actually from the body of Nigerian students in Johannesburg when we had a town hall meeting, and we were tasked with providing, some tips as a bulletin that can be given to new entrants and new students into University of Joburg. So really that was the reason why we put together this bulletin. So like I said earlier, there are tips, and they also tell you about the university area. They give you some information about the university area. They tell you about common crimes in Johannesburg, like you can see on the screen. And they also tell you areas that you go to and security apps that you can use, volatile areas that are insecure, areas that you should go about to get accommodation, and numbers, phone numbers that you can reach out to in case of any unforeseen event, right? So it is advisable that we read this bulletin. It's just a few pages. You know, let it not be that information is hidden in a book from you. So please endeavor to read this bulletin, endeavor to also share the information in it, maybe by way of sharing the bulletin to new people. And yeah, so that's just it. So I would hand over this session to my colleague, Mr. George, but I will end by saying that be forewarned is to be forearmed. So please, this security bulletin contains a lot of tips that will help us to know more about security matters in the University of Johannesburg area in Joburg. So we've covered all those different areas. So please do well to go through this. Thank you so much. Yeah, Mr. George has maybe he has one or two things to say, and then we can make the floor open for questions and answers. Thank you.
Good day, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is George. My name is George, and I'm the PRO of this honorable association. So just like my colleague said, we all know that Johannesburg is not is one of the most unsecure cities in the world. So the only thing we can do, since we're international students of the University of Johannesburg, being that the university is situated in the Johannesburg metropolis, we just have to be security conscious. Security conscious in the sense that we just have to be conscious of our environment. A lot of things are happening these days, like one of the issues that happened earlier this week in Rosettenville about the guys that were shot dead. 9 of them were shot dead, 8 were captured, and I think 8 or 9 of them escaped when they made attempts to rob cash and transit. Even it got to the point of shooting the helicopter and the pilot and the assistant pilot. So seeing that, you see that even anything can happen at any time. You live in your house and coming back every day is just by the grace of God. So what can we do personally to try to be careful? Is just try to always be observant. Don't walk on the streets of Johannesburg being carefree. Maybe we know that most of us will carry our bags containing our laptops or some of our gadgets. You just try as much as you can not to flaunt it when you're walking the streets. Even your wallets, try not to flaunt your cash, maybe when you're trying to pay for an item or something. Always try to be careful of approaching vehicles and vehicles that come close to you. Okay, like last week, a friend of mine who stays close to Westdean was telling me how he was mugged. How did it happen? He was on his way to church. So those guys just pretended as if they wanted to inquire about an address of where they are going, not knowing that they were just buying time to actually come closer to him. So when he now offered to assist them, trying to see the address and how to point them in the right direction, they now pulled out a gun, took his phone, even looked at his shoe to know if he was near wearing a nice shoe. They also took his wristwatch. So you see that this crime is a South African. This crime is not only about foreigners or anybody by nationality. No, anybody can be a victim at any time. Even for girls, a friend of mine was mugged sometime last month. The guy was trying to create a conversation, thinking that the guy was maybe trying to get to know her better or ask her out, not knowing that the guy has an intention. All of a sudden, the guy came close, pointed a gun, took her bag. You know, ladies, the way they go to church, they might wear flats with their shoes on the back so that they wear their shoes when they come closer to church. The guy took the shoes, her phone, and her handbags. So what can we do? Whether you're a girl or a guy, try as much as you can to get yourself a protective gear. More like you can have yourself pepper spray or any of this, you know, anything that can at least give you some certain sense of security when you're walking. And always put it in a place where it's handy. Winter is fast approaching, which is, I wouldn't say we are safe in summer, but we know that most of these crimes are always carried out during the winter because why? It normally gets dark on time. So we just try as much as we can, whatever protective equipment we have, don't put it in your handbag, don't put it in your backpack. Try as much as you can to put it in your jacket, the pocket of your jacket. So whenever something funny happens, you try as much as you can to make it reachable for you to defend yourself timely. And please, in as much as you have a protective equipment to defend yourself, once you see that the person already pulled a gun or something at you before you pull, try as much as you can to let go of whatever they ask of to protect your life. Because these guys, they don't play, they can do anything. So once the person pulls before you, try as much as you can to be calm. It's only when you get, you know, after he has pulled, you're trying to be fast, something funny might happen. So let's try as much as we can to be careful. And especially some of us that go to the CBD, the Central Business District of Johannesburg, to get one or two things, food items, clothes or something. Let us try as much as we can to be careful while walking. Because the way they mug you, you think that everybody is in motion. No, everybody is not in motion. Some of them, they've seen you the way you walk and they know you're not familiar with the environment. So they've already made you a target even without you knowing. So you're walking forward when they just disperse themselves. Someone is coming in front of you, another person is behind you, another person is by the side. Once you don't notice that they are coming, the person behind you holds your neck. The person in front gives you 2 punches. If you're a guy, it gives you 2 punches or 1 on your kidney so that it makes you unconscious. By so doing, they will take everything you have on you. And if you try to fight back, you can be stabbed or something. Sometime in 2019, we noticed about some UJ student that was stabbed to death in Auckland Park when he or she was being marked. So some of these things are more like it happens daily. So the bulletin contains some of the details of the areas we should pass and where not to go to. It also contains unsafe places. So whatever you do, try not to go there. Even if you go there, try to go there at the time where you can see your feet. Once it's getting dark, try to go home. Let's not keep late nights. And if you're going somewhere, if possible, if you can go in parks, even if you don't have people to go with you, try as much as you can to be careful of your environment. It's very, very important. Some of this document, this bulletin also contains some of the apps that you can use in terms of emergency. So let's also, like the Namola app, we also have the MySOS SA app, and also the contact numbers of different emergency agencies that you can call, the ambulance, the police, anything of sort that you feel that you need assistance with. It helps open your mind to some of the places when you're looking for residents, some of the places that are secure for you to actually seek accommodation in, that you know that at least you're secured, your life and your property is actually secured. So with this in mind, this bulletin will be made available at the international office and the 4 campuses, and also the card offices in the 4 campuses. That's the APK campus, the Bunton campus, the DFC campus, and also the Soweto campus. So let us all try to make this bulletin accessible to both the Nigerian community, the Congolese community, whatever community that, because this information is not only limited to only Nigerians. Everybody here, everybody in UJ should benefit from some of this information. So let us also, when we have friends that we can get it across to, we should always try to get it across to them, because by so doing, we can also save a life. We'll also make arrangements. I saw a comment on the comment section. We'll also make available the soft copy so that everybody can actually have access to this information. It is very important that we are careful. Even some of us that think that being in a car, maybe a Taxify boat, or some people that own a car, you think you're secure in your car, that nothing will happen. These guys are not joking. They are fast. They just target you properly. You might be in your car, you're driving, and all of a sudden your car windows will be broken and your handbags, because they target it in such a way that on one strike, they go directly to that item they are targeting, and they are taking it. If we go to YouTube and search South African crimes, we can see a lot of these things being perpetrated. And you have an idea of the things that are actually happening in this country. So this bulletin will actually make us to be forewarned so that we don't fall victims. And also we should try as much as we can to disseminate this information so that everybody can be carried along. Thank you very much for the opportunities, and any other contributions will be greatly appreciated, or questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. George Inebe. And see, great people. I joke not, like anything Mr. George is saying as far as security is concerned, I want you to actually take it seriously. Take it seriously, because you know, I experience sometimes, you know, it's actually the heartbeat of so many things. Like apart from the fact that experience, I mean, people that has experience will be able to guide us. So it's also very good that we take all of these things very seriously. So at these junctions, like, we want to ask if there's any person who has, you know, one tip or the other, or observation or questions. So just because this is security matter, for a chief security officer of the state might not be able to secure the state as somebody in township or anything. So it is on that note that we are saying, if you have a tip that you think, oh, might save, you know, anyone, or might be of, you know, great advantage to us here, please, let's see our hands up, or we just need to respond in the chat room so that we discuss that and we are able to round up what's it called now? This session for today, because we promised 1 o'clock and this is just 10 minutes after the time we promised to end the meeting for today. So the question is, where is it actually safe to live in, as in residence accommodation around APK? So the question is, so from Mr. Patrick now, is that, where would you say is safe? Okay, and I think on that ground, so so we are sharing, Mr. Patrick, if you can look at your screen now. So the PRO is sharing very vital information about places we consider to be, you know, a bit safe, like, or places we consider to be safe around these places you have mentioned. So in Johannesburg, we have, you know, the list like that, like that, like that, like that, like that. So, and yeah, in APB campus, you also have the list in this manner. In DFC, you have the list in this manner. So, like, I would, can we all see? Let's just comment that yes, I can see, so that we know this is this is security information, and nobody would take that, you know, as a for jokes. Nobody will take that for joke, please. Okay, so in absence of any other questions, so I will also want to thank every single person that has been part of this. Okay, thank you, Tolu. Thank you, Mr. Patrick. I mean, Dr. Patrick, thank you. Thank you. So we can all see now, and this document, I think, is going to be shared with us, like what's it called now? The executive will get it and share with us, so that we just, we know now that, oh, if I'm looking for accommodation, let me just zero it, in this place that has been shared here. It is always very good for us to work with this kind of information. And on that note, I will also be taking this time to remind us that tomorrow is another day that we also need to come together to have this further discussion, further okay, also make plans to make the soft copy available to all. Yes. Okay, so Mr. George is also saying, so the soft copy will be made available to us all. Thank you so much for that. So, and the presentation tool will also be, sent to us. Tomorrow we'll be focusing on bursaries, paper publication, from our research. So like while we are doing our research, we also want to see how we can extract, papers. How do we go about that so that we are doing many things or one or two things in one project. So we'll be discussing that, and at the same time we'll also be discussing opportunities beyond UJ. So like is everything about our academic pursuit or academic whatever, is it limited to UJ alone, or we can reach out beyond UJ and do more for ourselves? All of these things, and many more are the things we'll be looking at tomorrow. And I can promise you it is going to be an impactful one, because I said it earlier that if time is given, if we have this larger number of time, testimony of what we have gained alone will not be little. That is just the basic truth. So like from every single programs we have had since last year till now, it has been, from one impactful program to the end. Even when we went for, Niger celebration, what was meant to be just celebration was, turned out to become an impactful outing. So I can guarantee you that tomorrow is another time that we will have, and we can promise it's going to be very, very impactful. Before I leave, finally, I would also like to bring out the president to let us know if there are other things we need to pay attention to, if there are basic information he needs to let us know now. And after that, we take the national pledge and we go out. So don't forget that tomorrow we'll also be looking at some of these things that we did not look at. So like the international students representative will be here tomorrow to also be part of us. So, and it promises to be, very great, just very, very great. So, Mr. President, just before we sign out from today's program, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shegun. Thank you very much, sir. And members of Consuj and also international student present here, thank you so much for coming. And tomorrow is going to be another great section. We are looking at bursaries. I know many of us were asking about URC bursaries, GES bursaries. Tomorrow, the presenter will be taking care of that, and that is Ms. Dudu Mbata from the postgraduate school. So she was here at our first symposium, and she will also be here tomorrow to take questions and also to present available bursaries and funding opportunities for us. So the international office also told us more about bursary, was with more focus to our undergraduate students, which was also the essence of why we invited them in the first place. But tomorrow we'll talk a lot about our postgraduate students for funding. And also tomorrow also, based on what we have learned today in terms of research methodology, tomorrow we'll be looking at publications. How can we extract publications how can we extract publications from our thesis and our research work to ensure that we begin to publish in high reputable journal or scopus-oriented journals. And our speaker tomorrow is ready, and he has a practical experience of what to do, how to do, and how to do with our supervisors also. How do we go about it and settle some of these issues in terms of conflict of or publications also. And also tomorrow, we'll be looking at opportunities beyond UJ. We all understand that the immigration law now at these times, I don't want to say unfriendly or unfavorable, but they are what it is. It is what it is. But tomorrow, our speaker will also be looking at opportunities beyond the shores of UJ, opportunities beyond South Africa. How can we tap into some of these opportunities in terms of traveling, in terms of business, in terms of the one that we can even access here. And even the presentation slide has been sent to us, and believe me, the presentation is loaded. So I want to play with us today, please. Tomorrow, let us make ourselves available. It's also 2 hours. We are sorry for the time. You know, when our presentations are sweet, we can't just cut over. Tomorrow, the timing has been very, very regulated, and we're going to use 2 hours. And it starts by 10 a.m. South African time to 12 noon, or at 9 a.m. Nigerian time to 11 a.m. Nigeria time tomorrow. So we'll be expecting to see you tomorrow. The Executive Council says thank you for coming today. Thank you very much, Mr. Shegun. Mr. Shegun, I'm done, sir.
Everyone, thank you. It's been a very great one. So, and it has been a very great privilege, and I'm honored to be the anchor for this prestigious program. So, at this junction, so we want to draw the curtain of this discussion, and we'll meet tomorrow. Tomorrow's time is 10 o'clock in the morning. It is 2 hours, but it will be running from 10 to 12 p.m. And we promise as much as possible to keep to time. But then the most important thing is that it promises to be very, very impactful. It promises to be very, very impactful. I've actually come to discover that there is nothing we want to do specially that is beyond power of discussion. Whether we want to wage war or we want to stop war, whether I want to do businesses or not, or what I want to do, academic purposes. So the center of everything has to do with discussion. Like we are having it now, it's discussion, going forward into so many things we want to do, our security, our academics, funding, and all of that. So, and I believe in all of these things, information, we find those, and information will be very useful to us. It's on that note that I want us to take the national pledge, just to remind ourselves where we are from, and once again to the international students in our midst. We want to also, plead with you to, just let's go this way. We want to take our national pledge, and with that, we'll be signing out for today, just to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m., 10 o'clock in the morning, South African time. Please don't forget, we'll start on time, and we'll promise to, end that session on time. So without much ado, I am Olusegun Ajayi once again, and that is, we have come to the end of today's symposium, which we believe has been very impactful. At the count of 1, 2, 3, we do the pledge together. So for us to, avoid this, rancors, I just think and if we can all leave our microphone on, so that because of the lag, so that we are not too slow and not too fast. So yeah, but whichever way, let us just do our national pledge at the count of 3.
I think it would be good for us to switch off our camera so we can take a group picture.
Okay. Okay, to switch it off, right?
On.
Oh, okay. Please, we have been we have been asked to switch on our camera so that we can take a very fine picture. Who knows if by 2050, we need to use this thing as very possible you might need to use it as your certificate to contest in the local government, please. Okay, so when the picture has been taken, let's know so that we just do the national pledge and yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think the picture has been taken. Just as some of us. Should we look for that?
Oh, okay. So the picture is said to have been taken.
No, let's just, I think some people are still trying to.
Oh, okay. Join the
picture.
Okay. I just see why Bruno or by always the one taking the picture.
Okay, I think I'm doing that now.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, I think I've taken the picture now.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you once again. It's been a very great time with every one of us. So, and at this junction, so we'll be taking our national pledge as we close the program for today. Don't forget, 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, we are meeting again for the concluding part of the symposium. So at the count of 3, we take the pledge. 1, 2, go.
Much Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend our unity, and to uphold our honor and glory.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.